we ready for the jury? Okay. All right. All right. Mr. Connolly, can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Can you just count to 5 for me, please?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Next question.
All right, Mr. Connolly, we were talking about Hicksville there, and you made a comment that you had suggested to Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard that they keep it private or something along those lines.
I did, yes.
My question is just what prompted you to make that suggestion?
Well, it was getting kind of animated. You know, it was getting animated, and you know, no one wants to see their dirty laundry in public.
Were they both animated?
More so Amber. Johnny, yes, but more so Amber.
Okay. Do you remember anything in particular that Ms. Heard was saying at the time?
I don't recall, no. As I say, it wasn't really coherent. It was more the animation, you know, the head movements and the stern looks and stuff that prompted me to do what I have to do, you know.
Okay. Shifting gears a little bit. You listed out various places that you traveled with Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, and I think you listed Japan, Germany, Hicksville, and Australia. Do I have that right?
Correct, yes.
When were you in Australia?
That'll be 2015, Pirates 5.
And what were you doing in Australia?
My job. In that occasion, I flew out first. I usually fly out first to do the advance. The advance includes the check-in of accommodation. Not so much accommodation because Nathan Holmes, Ben King, and a chef called Russell, they would already been at the home, and got that sorted out. My main concern was locations, transport, local security, drivers, you know, making sure all that's in line before Johnny gets there. Jerry Judge would have travelled with Johnny into Australia. On arrival, I would have picked him up at the airport, as we do, take him to the house or whatever accommodation we're staying in, and I would have peeled off. I'd have left it at that, went back to my apartment. Johnny would have been in, maybe it could be up to a week for, you know, makeup, costume before any shooting starts, in which time it gives me a time to run around some locations, the studio, check out the studio, the locations, as well as be around for, if Johnny wants to go for dinner at night anywhere, I would check out these places as well.
Mr. Connolly, I'm sorry, I just had a little trouble hearing you there. Might be the connection, but could you speak maybe just a little bit slower? I'm sorry.
Okay, as I say, my job in Australia is just to secure all the advance. So I would check out, make sure the local drivers are there, all the cars are in order, the accommodations in order, the locations for shooting are all safe, liaison with production, what's expected of them. I would pick him up at the airport when he arrives, take him to the accommodation, peel off, go and check out a few restaurants in case he wants to go out. And if nothing's happening, stand down for that evening.
Does anything stand out to you about your time in Australia in 2015?
Yeah, Johnny lost a finger. Yeah. Yeah, one afternoon I was instructed to go to Johnny's accommodation.
Objection, and can we just approach
Okay,
from the-
all right.
Thanks.
Hold on just a minute, Mr. Connolly.
All right, Mr. Connolly, please continue, but as you go, please avoid discussing the substance of any communications that you had with Mr. Depp or his security, and just focus on what you observed.
Okay. I arrive at Johnny's accommodation with my driver, Andrew. I noticed that there's an SUV, one of the security, the RST, resident security team. One of their vehicles is sitting outside the door with no driver. So I just assumed there's something up. There's a security car there, but no driver. As I approach the door, I hear a muffled shouting and screaming, and quite muffled though, because the entrance to this house, there's a massive oak door. I mean, it's huge, and it's got to be about 25 mil thick. So I open it, and it's chaos. It's screaming and shouting, but all I can see with my eyes is Johnny. He's wearing a jacket, a hat, and a bag with his notebooks. And I always know that bag because it's a grey canvas bag. And he's sort of, nursing one hand. So I'm saying, well, hey, what's going on? And it's screaming and shouting. It's madness. Amber's irate. I mean, tenacious. It's crazy stuff. Johnny's shouting back. So I said, Johnny, let's go. Let's get out, that's my job, to remove him from a situation. Let's get out. I do a couple of steps with him. Johnny, give me 5 minutes, Mal. 5 minutes. Well, he's the boss, There's no bullets flying. So, okay, give him 2 minutes. I say, let's go. Eventually, I get him out. I managed to get him outside the door. We go downstairs. But Amber appears from somewhere. Now, I don't know if Amber was upstairs or in the room to the left or wherever, but she appears and she's screaming, berating him. She's basically berating him. Like, yeah, fuck off, she's saying, Johnny. Yeah, that's what you do. Fuck off. That's what you do all the time. That's all you ever do is fuck off. You fuck off with your guys. You're a fucking coward. That's what you fucking do. You fucking coward. Yeah, fuck off with your guys. You big man. All that shit that goes with it. Gets him downstairs. By this time, Amber's on the threshold of the accommodation, and she's screaming, fuck off, you fucking coward, that kind of words, And I get him into the car, and I want to sit in the same. I usually sit in the front seat shotgun, but I want to sit in the same seat at the back, so I can have a look what's going on here and have a chat and have a talk. But when I get around the car, the driver's not locked the door, so he's out the door again. And he's making his way back up the stairs. I get back round again. By the time I get to the top, there's two concrete stairs to the front door. he's just crossing the threshold, and the screaming starting again. Excuse me. Amber is screaming again. Johnny, let's go, let's go. And this time it's a wee bit more force, and I managed to actually basically pull him out of the place. Get him into the car. Doors are locked this time. Into the car, we take off. I got him back to my apartment using, a sort of secret way through the underground car park and service lifts. I get him up to my apartment. Get him into my apartment. Start washing his hand, basic triage in his hand, washing it, first aid. It's a mess. His finger's just a mess. It's like one of them cartoon exploding cigars. I always think in my mind that one of them cigars that blow up. The cartoons, boom, and it's soft flapping around, and I can see bone. There's bone there. It's smashed to bits, and he's wincing as I'm trying to wash his hand. Anyway, I sit him down and I phoned Debbie the nurse, who's living in the same apartment block as me. So that's my first thing. Phone Debbie. About 20 minutes later, if that, I don't recall. Maybe 25, maybe half an hour. But she turns up with Dr. Kipper. So Dr. Kipper does his thing. Nurse Debbie dresses it all, but Kipper is saying, right, this we have to go to the hospital with this. There's no other way. We have to go to the hospital. This has to be seriously looked at. We get to the hospital, and that's when that's when his treatment started,
Okay. When you were in the presence of Mr. Depp and Miss Heard in the house in Australia, how far away were you from Miss Heard?
When I first entered the house, Miss Heard wasn't visible to me. Only Johnny. It's only when we started to leave, Miss Heard appeared, and she's probably, well, you're talking 3 feet.
Did you observe any injuries on Miss Heard?
No injuries. No injuries.
I'll allow it.
I'm sorry, what was your answer?
No injuries. None.
Other than the injury to his finger, did you observe any injuries on Mr. Depp?
No. No. Well, I say no. There was a mark in his face, and I didn't know what that was, so I never really put it down too much. But in the hospital, I took a photograph, and when I look at that photograph, I can see 2 injuries. When we're sitting in the car,
Hold on, Mr. Connolly.
Okay. Objection to the extent he's going to be talking about what the mark is on his, since he didn't see what happened and he's not a doctor, he can't describe what.
All right.
That's fine, Your Honor. We
Are you going to move on? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, next question.
I think you've generally described for us the kinds of things Miss Heard was saying. How would you describe her overall demeanor when she and Mr. Depp were in each other's presence in the house in Australia?
good days and bad days.
I'm sorry, I mean on that particular day.
On that particular day, I had never seen him in the house on that particular day. The only time I seen Miss Heard and Johnny in that house is when I arrived there to extract them.
And how did Miss Heard seem to you when you saw her on that day when you arrived to extract him?
Crazy. Fierce, fierce.
Okay. What was the last thing Miss Heard said as you were taking Mr. Depp out of the house to go to your apartment and then the hospital?
Yeah, the last words I recall hearing as I'm getting Johnny out is, yeah, just fuck off with your guys, you're fucking covered like you always do.
All right. I have no further questions.
All right, cross-examination, Mr. Nadelhoff.
Mr. Connolly, you still work for Mr. Depp?
I do, yeah.
Okay. And you've worked for him now for about 18 years?
No.
Well, 2 years ago, you said you worked for him for 16 years, so 2 more years would be 18.
No,
now.
I worked with him. I didn't work for him. I worked for a guy called Jerry Judge in Music and Arts. Johnny Depp never paid me. Johnny Depp started paying me 2 years ago.
Okay, so now you're being, so you were working, Jerry Judge was your boss until he passed away, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, and now you get paid directly by Mr. Depp, correct?
Right.
And you're paid a salary by Mr. Depp?
No.
Okay. And Mr. Depp's also provided you gifts, correct?
Gifts?
Gifts. Money,
Yes.
gifts.
No. Yes, Johnny's gave me gifts. I've gave Johnny gifts.
And she's given you gifts over $8,500, correct?
$8,500.
Yeah.
He gave me a lot more than that.
Okay. And you're loyal to Mr. Depp, right?
Yes, of course I'm loyal to Mr. Depp. I'd be loyal to you if I was working for you.
Okay. Now, going to Australia, you said you went to Australia in 2015 with Mr. Depp, correct? Or you went before Mr. Depp, but you were there to work for Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
And Jerry Judge was also there?
Not when I arrived, no.
But Jerry Judge was eventually in Australia, correct?
Correct.
And Nathan Holmes was also in Australia as well, right?
Correct.
And Mr. Depp came to Australia in February of 2015, correct?
Correct.
And when Mr. Depp first came to Australia, Amber was not with Mr. Depp, right?
I don't recall. I don't recall if Amber arrived with Johnny or Amber arrived later.
You don't know one way or the other?
No.
And Mr. Depp stayed in a house in Australia, correct?
Correct.
And you and the security team were about 40 minutes away from the house Mr. Depp was renting, correct?
25, 30. 20, well, 30, 40. Yeah, you're correct. If it's a traffic day, yeah, 40 minutes at most.
And alcohol was in the house in Australia, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And Mr. Depp consumed alcohol before Amber arrived in Australia, isn't that right?
Yeah, he would have done, yes.
Okay. And you know if Mr. Depp consumed illegal drugs before Amber arrived in Australia?
I'm going to object to speculation.
I wouldn't know.
Overruled. I'll allow it. Go ahead.
And do you know if Mr. Depp spent any time with Marilyn Manson in Australia before Amber arrived?
Don't recall. I don't recall Marilyn Manson being there.
So you don't. So as Mr. Depp's security, you don't know if Mr. Depp was with Marilyn Manson at any time?
I left Australia to smuggle 2 dogs back out of Australia back to.
No. I'm talking about it. I'm talking about in the beginning of March 2015. You were that. You were.
Manson.
You don't know one way or the other.
No.
Were you seeing Mr. Depp every day? In early
Not
March
at the beginning,
2015.
No, not at the beginning. I had other duties.
Okay. So you don't know what Mr. Depp was doing at that time, correct?
No, I wasn't with him.
Okay. And you don't know when Amber arrived in Australia, correct?
No.
Okay. But you do know that Amber stayed with Mr. Depp, right?
Yes.
Okay. And you talked about a resident security team that was at the Australia house, is that right?
That's correct.
And were there about 4? Was there anyone from the resident security team in the house when you arrived on March 8th, 2015?
No.
Okay. And the resident security team, is it your understanding that they were there, that they were kind of guarding the house?
They would have been in the grounds, but the substantial grounds, real substantial grounds. They would have been at the grounds somewhere.
But they didn't go into the house on March 8th, correct?
I don't know. I never seen them in the house.
Okay. And so when you arrived at the house and went in, was it just Mr. Depp and Amber Heard?
Just Mr. Depp and Amber Heard.
Okay. And
There
before
may be someone else there. I never visibly seen anyone else. I wasn't there long enough to chat to anybody.
and when you arrived at the house, you could hear a ruckus, correct?
Yes. Well, yes, I could hear. I could hear. Definitely hear something through the door. Yeah.
But you said the door was so thick you couldn't hear the actual words that were being said. Is that right?
No, just a shouting.
And then you went in the house and saw Mr. Depp in the foyer, correct?
Yes, correct.
And Mr. Depp was trying to urinate in the foyer, wasn't he?
No.
Mr. Depp had his penis out of his
Objection.
pants, didn't he?
I think I would remember
Relevance.
seeing Mr. Depp's penis.
I'll allow. Next question.
And you were trying to get Mr. Depp out of the house, correct?
Correct, I was trying to get Mr. Depp out of the house, yes.
And Mr. Depp was refusing to leave the house, was he not?
Not so much refused, he just wanted 2 minutes to say his piece.
You took Mr. Depp's arm to try to move him out, but he broke away, isn't that right?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, so he was strong enough to break away from your grip, correct?
No.
So you had his arm and he broke away, though, correct?
No.
Isn't that what you just said?
No, I let him go.
You let go. But it wasn't
Yes,
easy.
of course.
It wasn't
I'm not
easy.
going to drag him by it.
So Mr. Depp's your boss. You'll do what Mr. Depp wants, correct?
No.
It's not easy to get Mr. Depp out of the house, correct?
Not easy.
Okay. Now, can we play Exhibit 380A, which is already in evidence?
Plaintiffs or defendants, I'm sorry.
It's Defendant's Exhibit 380A.
It's 388.
What is this? Sorry, what is this?
And this is a recording from Australia, and it's just of Mr. Depp.
I don't think that's in evidence, Your Honor.
Hold on, it's not in evidence.
Our Plaintiff's Exhibit 380A?
I don't believe there are any recordings from Australia in evidence, Your Honor.
I don't have anything
I think
in
this.
evidence.
There definitely is. It's just of Mr. Depp. We can.
I don't have 380 in evidence.
It's 380A.
380. I have, Jamie says it was ID'd but never admitted.
It was never admitted. It was.
Your Honor, the recordings from Australia have other voices on them. and
We're
I
only asking
also-
for the. It's only the clip of Mr. Depp.
Okay, wait,
Well,
I
I
have it. It's actually plaintiffs 380A, minute 33 to 34.
What's the foundation for using it with this witness?
He was at the house.
It's in evidence,
It's in
that's
evidence.
fine. So you're playing that clip, correct?
Correct.
And it's on plaintiffs.
What you are and who you are and how you fucked me over and make me feel sick of myself. There's still a lot left in the day. Maybe you should dye your hair. I see your ribs.
Did you hear that, Mr. Connolly?
I did, yes.
And that was the sort of condition Mr. Depp was in when you saw him at the house, correct?
Yes, yes.
Mr. Depp was upset and angry when you saw him at the house, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Now, did you take Mr. Depp to the hospital?
Along with others, yes.
Is it your testimony that Mr. Depp was coherent at the hospital?
Yes.
Let's show Defendant's Exhibit 370, and I'd just like you to look at something for a moment. I'm not putting it in, I'm not publishing it, I just want to show him a document. Defendant's Exhibit 370.
Your Honor, I'm going to object on foundation grounds. The witness is not even copied on this document.
I'm going to ask him a question and ask him if it refreshes his recollection. That's all I was going to ask him about. I can use any
It's-
document to refresh.
Wait, if you want to approach for a second, we'll see what
You can take it down. Was Mr. Depp's finger was filled with dirt, grime, and paint when you saw it?
Yes.
And now, you say you saw no bruises or cuts on Amber on March 8th, 2015, correct?
Correct.
Isn't it true that your main concern was Mr. Depp and getting him out of the house, correct?
Correct.
So you weren't concentrating on Amber, correct?
I was close enough. If there was any marks on Amber's face, I would have picked that up in 2 minutes.
As you're
Sir, I've been chained to the Home Office.
As you're trying to pull Mr. Depp out of the house, you're scanning Amber for bruises and cuts?
Not scanning, but I'm looking at it.
As you're moving Mr. Depp out of the house, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Yes. How do I know what she's going to lift?
Right.
I'm watching her. When I move a client from a bar situation, a house situation, I watch what's happening around me.
But you're not.
I know where the client is. The client's with me.
Right. The client was with you, and you're not scanning. You didn't scan Ms. Heard's body for.
I scan everything. I
You
watch
scanned everything on her
every move
body?
somebody makes. Not everything on her body.
No.
She's wearing long sleeves, from what I recall.
Okay. And at the hospital, the doctor was told that Mr. Depp cut his finger with a knife, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And you understand that the damage at the house, at Mr. Depp's rented house, amounted to about $100,000, correct?
Objection
Very
calls for
good.
speculation.
I'll allow it. That's fine. Next question.
In Hicksville, other than when you first arrived, you didn't go to the trailer that Mr. Depp and Amber were staying in, is that right?
Only when I delivered them to it.
Right. And then after you delivered them to
That,
the...
when I delivered them to it, when we first got there,
Right.
we went inside and had a look around. Yeah.
But after that, you never went inside the trailer after that, correct?
Correct.
So you have no idea what went on in the trailer between Mr. Depp and Amber, isn't that right?
I was told.
But you have no idea, you don't have any personal knowledge as to what
I never
happened.
seen it.
Right.
No, I never seen it. No.
And you have no idea how much damage was done to the trailer, correct? Personal knowledge.
I do have
of
an
it.
idea.
You have no idea what happened to Amber in the trailer, isn't that right?
That's correct.
And you don't, and you talked about that there was tension between Amber and Mr. Depp. You don't know what started the fight, correct?
Correct.
Did you see Mr. Depp grab another woman's arm before they moved off to the truck, before the fight started?
No.
Okay. Were you with the company when you were you with the group?
No.
Okay.
I was maybe 20 feet away observing. That's my job, not to get involved. I don't sit with my clients in a personal situation. I just observe.
Now, you testified that at times you saw marks and bruises on Mr. Depp, a fat lip, I think you said. You don't have dates for those times that you saw that, right?
I don't recall. No, you're talking. That's a long time ago. You know. It's
Right. And you testified in the UK in this. You testified in the UK, correct?
correct.
And you gave a witness statement too in the UK, correct?
Correct.
And you never testified to seeing any marks, bruises, or injuries on Mr. Depp, isn't that right, in the UK?
I wasn't asked in the UK.
But you never testified to that, right?
I wasn't asked.
Okay. Now, you talked about a private plane that you saw a plastic lighter bounce off of Mr. Depp's chest, correct?
Correct.
And you said you saw Mr. Depp smirking and then he said, was that it? Is that right?
No.
Okay. You don't know what started the fight there, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you talked about at the lofts, I think you called it, in Los Angeles, you saw a Coke can get thrown somewhere in the vicinity of Mr. Depp, correct?
I seen a can,
Right.
not a Coke can. I couldn't tell you what can it was.
Okay. And you don't know what happened before you saw the Coke can get thrown, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you talked about this picture of that you took in Southeast Asia, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you never mentioned in the UK matter or in your witness statement Mr. Depp having scratches and bruises on the train, correct?
I was never prompted, I was never asked.
You gave a witness statement that gave what you saw and the relationship between Amber and Mr. Depp, and you never talked about bruises or cuts on Mr. Depp in Southeast Asia, correct?
No, I wasn't asked that.
Okay. Now, you said only Johnny could make requests for a private dining car, isn't that right?
I said that.
Only Johnny needed a private dining car. Miss Heard didn't need a private dining car, correct?
That would be correct. Oh yeah, that would definitely be correct. Yeah,
Okay.
only Johnny Depp would need a private dining car, but Johnny doesn't want a private dining car.
Okay. Now, you were not present in Miss Heard and Mr. Depp's cabin on the train, right?
No.
And if a fight occurred,
That's correct.
and if a fight occurred in the cabin, you'd have no way of knowing about it, right?
I wouldn't know.
And you don't know if Mr. Depp was strangling Miss Heard, do you?
No, I wouldn't know.
You don't know if Mr. Depp had his shirt wrapped around Amber's neck, do you?
Objection, speculation, cumulative.
No, I wouldn't know. The only reason I would know anything in that cabin.
No, okay,
is if
you
the
would know.
cabin door was
You
open or
answered,
closed.
sir, you answered that.
All right, we can move on.
Okay. And if we could put up, please, Plaintiff's Exhibit 120, and this is at 190, and I believe 120 has been in evidence before.
Well, I have 120A, 120B, and 120C.
So I think this would be 120D, if it,
120D?
yeah.
Okay. D.
And I would, Mr. Connolly, I'm asking you questions about the fourth one down. Do you see that?
Yeah, it's not very clear though. I can't.
I'm going
It's tiny.
to objection. The document is hearsay. I don't know what the exception would be.
Okay, hold, if you want to come forward, let's.
Take it down. Mr. Connolly, you agree that Ms. Heard's been nothing but respectful and professional to you, correct?
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. Thank you. I have nothing further.
All right, redirect.
Mr. Connolly, very briefly, when you were in Ms. Heard's presence in the house in Australia on the day that Mr. Depp lost his fingertip, how far away were you from Ms. Heard?
On the exit, on the egress, about 3 feet, 4 feet at the most.
Can you estimate for us about how long you were in Ms. Heard's presence?
Oh, you know what? Best way to do this is think about it and count it out, okay? 15 seconds, 20 seconds.
How was the light?
Well, it's Australia. The door is massive. It's a wall of glass behind them. The light is absolutely fine. You couldn't get better.
All right, I have nothing further.
All right, is this a witness subject to recall?
I think so. Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Connolly, since you're subject to recall, do not discuss your testimony with anybody and don't watch anything about this case, okay? But you're free to log off
Of course,
today.
Your Honor, yeah.
All right, you're free to log off today, though,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, your next witness,
Mr. Starling, Jenkins, Your Honor.
Mr. Jenkins. Yeah. Mr. Jenkins, can you hear me, sir?
Afternoon. Yes, I can, Your Honor.
All right, perfect. Thank you, sir. All right. If you raise your right hand for me, do you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of law?
I do.
All right, thank you, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Jenkins. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
And could you please state your full name for the record?
Starling, Jenkins III.
And Mr. Jenkins, where do you live?
Los Angeles, California.
And what is your occupation?
Executive chauffeur, security.
And how long have you worked as an executive chauffeur and in security?
Executive chauffeur for 30 years, security for 8 years.
And what occupations did you hold prior to working as an executive chauffeur and in security?
Route sales executive and United States Marines.
Mr. Jenkins, do you know the plaintiff in this case, Johnny Depp?
Yes, I do.
And when did you first meet Mr. Depp?
1993.
How did you first meet Mr. Depp?
He used delivery service to transport him to and from.
So in the 30 or so years that you've known Mr. Depp, what services have you performed for him over the course of that period?
Child care, animal care, personal assistant duties, security, and transportation.
And could you estimate approximately how many hours per week would you provide those services to Mr. Depp?
40 to 60 hours.
And can you describe generally your interactions with Mr. Depp in the time that you've worked for him?
Pleasant, always upbeat.
Do you know the defendant in this case, Amber Heard?
Yes.
And when did you first meet Miss Heard?
After the filming of the Rum Diary project.
And can you describe generally your interactions with Miss Heard?
Pleasant, cordial, very respectful.
And so in your time working with Mr. Depp, did you ever observe Mr. Depp's and Miss Heard's interactions with one another?
Yes.
And can you describe those interactions generally, please?
Very cordial, very aware that people are around them, very, very friendly.
Did you ever see them argue?
Yes.
Can you describe what you observed about those arguments?
It would be initiated by her. She would try to engage with him. He would tell me to turn the music up.
And so where did these arguments take place?
In the car.
Do you recall how many times you witnessed them argue?
Twice.
Mr. Jenkins, turning your attention to April 21st, 2016, can you tell the jury what you recall about that day?
Could you repeat the question, sir?
Sure. So turning your attention to April 21st, 2016, can you tell the jury what you recall about that day?
It was the birthday party being held at the penthouse.
And when you say the penthouse, what are you referring to?
It's the Eastern Columbia building.
And what were you doing that evening?
That evening, I was assigned security on the detail.
Were you inside the residence while the birthday party was taking place?
I was in the CP, the command post that's stationed on the same floor, right outside of the elevators.
And did you interact with Ms. Heard at all that evening?
Yes, I did.
Can
In
you-
regards to getting her clients keys, parking, making sure no one else was on the floor that wasn't invited to the party.
Were there any issues at the birthday party at the time that you were present at the penthouses?
No issues except for the boss did not show up.
And do you recall what time you left that day?
11:15 p.m. that evening.
And Mr. Jenkins, what happened the next day, April 22nd, 2016?
I arrived early, 10:45. Went upstairs to the penthouse. I was informed by Amber that she got in a fight with Johnny last night. She threw his personal property over the balcony into the streets, 9th and Broadway.
And when you say personal property, what are you referring to?
His phone, wallet, credit cards, passports, everything that's in his wallet.
Did Ms. Heard say anything else to you about this altercation?
Nothing except they were fighting.
So what did you do after Ms. Heard informed you that she had thrown Mr. Depp's personal property off the balcony?
Formulated a plan with Norm from the office to use the Find My Phone app, hit the streets, and try to get lucky.
Did you end up finding Mr. Depp's phone?
Yes, I did. In Skid Row, probably 6 miles from the house.
And who had the phone?
A homeless gentleman, unhoused gentleman. I approached him about the phone. He was honest. He returned it. I gave him a reward for it.
And what was the reward?
$420, chicken tacos, chips, apples, Fiji water.
After finding Mr. Depp's phone, what did you do?
I returned to the penthouse, showed the phone to Amber that I retrieved it. I left it in the CP for the evening security to return it to Mr. Depp.
So after figuring out things with the phone, what happened next?
What happened next is I walked Amber to the car. We got everybody in the car. She's on her way to Coachella. I went back to the penthouse to retrieve the dogs and the luggage.
Were you also going to Coachella with Ms. Heard?
Yes, I was. I was the transportation for Amber and her friends while she was at Coachella.
So how did you get to Coachella?
Drove the SUV provided by Johnny, put the animals and all the luggage in, and headed out to the venue.
And the morning of April 22nd, did you see any injuries on Ms. Heard?
No marks, no injuries.
And so driving out to Coachella, did anyone drive with you?
I was in the car alone except for the animals.
And how did Ms. Heard get to Coachella?
She drove her Mustang.
Was anyone else in her car?
She was with, I believe, her sister and one other friend, her assistant, Savannah.
And do you know how many days Ms. Heard and her friends were planning to stay at Coachella?
So the following Monday, I believe it's the 25th of April, we departed.
And do you recall where Ms. Heard was staying at Coachella?
We were staying at the Parker boutique hotels there in Palm Springs, outside of Coachella.
Were you also staying at the Parker Hotel?
I also stayed there.
And so did you attend Coachella for work or for pleasure?
For work.
And what was your job that weekend?
Provide security and transportation, animal care, Amber's rolling assistant, take care of her, whatever she needed while she was there at the Parker or in out traveling.
Do you recall what time approximately you arrived at the Parker Hotel on April 22nd?
Around 5:30ish, maybe 5:45.
And what did Ms. Heard and her friends do that evening, April 22nd?
That evening, we arrived. We were assigned the rooms. We went with the staff of the Parker Hotel around to the suites where we were staying. They let us in. We let all the luggage in, and we proceeded to plan for that evening to depart by 7:15ish to get to the festival there.
And how did Ms. Heard and her friends get from the hotel to the festival that evening?
I drove them directly to there.
And did you have any discussions with Ms. Heard on the way to Coachella that evening?
We had a conversation pertaining to the surprise she left in the boss's bed prior to leaving the apartment.
And when you refer to the surprise in the boss's bed, what are you referring to?
The defecation.
And what did Ms. Heard say about the defecation in Mr. Depp's bed?
A horrible practical joke gone wrong.
Mr. Jenkins, what observations did you make about Ms. Heard at Coachella in April 2016?
She had no worries. She was there to whoop it up. It's her birthday. She's with her friends.
And how often were you with her that weekend?
Was with her every day. She went to the venue from the time that we interacted with the wallet incident, the night before at the party, all the way until Monday. We returned with the pets and the luggage.
And did you observe anything about Ms. Heard's health that weekend?
She got sick.
Do you know
She
what
got sick at the venue second night.
Do you know what caused Ms. Heard to be sick?
She was eating the magic mushrooms and drinking red wine on an empty stomach.
And how do you know that she drank red wine and took magic mushrooms?
I saw the room service, and I went to their room to collect them to take them out that evening.
So is that
I
something?
had it in the car.
Excuse me. Is that something you witnessed?
I witnessed it.
And what did you do in response to Ms. Heard being sick at Coachella?
I collected her, got her in the vehicle. She didn't want anyone else to know that she was sick. Take her back to the Parker alone. I took her to the 7-Eleven where I retrieved hydrating fluids, Advil, and let her have those. Got her back to the Parker, got her into the suite, and then went back to pick up everyone else.
And Mr. Jenkins, when you said Ms. Heard got sick, do you recall what her symptoms were?
Yeah, she was throwing up.
Mr. Jenkins, did you see any injuries of any kind on Ms. Heard April 22nd, 2016?
No injuries.
I'll sustain. So I asked.
What about the rest of that weekend, Mr. Jenkins? Any injuries that you saw?
No injuries.
Have you ever witnessed any physical abuse between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Jenkins. Nothing further.
All right, cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Mr. Jenkins.
Good afternoon.
So just to be clear on the chronology, you met Mr. Depp in 1993, is that right?
Correct.
And you've worked for him ever since?
Off and on? Yes.
Okay. And your salary's paid by Mr. Depp, correct?
Salary? No.
You receive pay for the work that you do for Mr.
Yes.
Depp, correct?
Of course. Yes. Of course.
And what Mr. Depp's security is your highest priority in your job, correct?
Yes, it is.
You're loyal to Mr.
His
Depp.
and his family. And his family.
You're loyal to Mr. Depp, right?
Yes.
Now, I want to turn to the night of April 21st, 2016. You just to recap, you said you were working a security shift at Amber's birthday at the Eastern Columbia building that evening, correct?
Correct.
And you said that your shift ended around 11:15, correct?
Correct.
And you said the boss still hadn't shown up by the time that you left the Eastern Columbia building, right?
Correct.
So you have no idea where Mr. Depp was or what he was doing from 9:30 p.m. that evening until at least 11:15 when you left the Eastern Columbia building, right?
No, I didn't know what he was doing. He was attending to his mother.
You weren't with him.
I had the information.
Okay. All right. That's information that you received, but you have no personal knowledge of that.
I have no reason to doubt it. It came from Sean.
Okay.
I have no
Okay. So Mr. Bett told you that?
The boss is out there.
Right. Mr. Bett told you that he was tending to his mother that night?
He didn't say mother. He said the boss was out there. I'm aware of what the situation was, the time frame. He's with his mother.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Okay. And did you have any understanding that he had a meeting with his new business manager earlier that evening where he was told that he was running out of money and that his taxes hadn't been paid in years? Did you have any understanding of that from Mr.
Objection.
Bett or anyone else?
Objection. Foundation calls for speculation.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
And you didn't see Mr. Depp that night, right?
No, I did not.
So you came back the next morning to escort Amber to Coachella, right?
Yes.
And you say that Amber told you that she had thrown Mr. Depp's phone off the roof?
Correct.
And did you come to understand that Mr. Depp had thrown her phone off the roof that evening prior to when Amber threw Mr. Depp's phone off the roof?
She informed me of that.
Okay, she informed you of that. So when you went outside to look for Mr. Depp's phone, you weren't looking for Miss Heard's phone, were you?
She had her phone. She had her phone. She was trying to re-download and back it up.
Okay, so you were only looking for Mr. Depp's phone when you went downstairs to try to, you found it with an unhoused person, you said, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and did I hear you right that you said it was 6 miles away where you found the phone?
Correct.
It actually wasn't 6 miles away. It was actually right below the building, the ECB building,
No, it was
correct?
not.
Okay,
No, it was not.
Can you pull up? Does he have a way to see documents that just him, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay. Could you please pull up the witness statement, Mr. Jenkins? Mr. Jenkins, do you remember giving testimony on Mr. Depp's behalf in the UK trial?
Yes, I did.
And you gave a witness statement first in writing, correct? Do you remember that?
Yes.
And then you were examined by the attorneys in the trial, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can you see on your screen the statement do you see a witness statement?
Yes, I see it.
It says witness statement of Starling Jenkins, right?
Correct.
And this is the statement that you wrote and signed as part of the UK trial on behalf of Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
Okay. If you can scroll, please, to page 3 of the document. And Mr. Jenkins, I'm going to read you what you wrote in paragraph 13.
Okay.
And we can go from there. On paragraph 13, you wrote in your witness statement in the UK trial, the Find My iPhone application indicated that Johnny's phone was somewhere on the streets below the balcony of the residence. Did I read that right?
If that's what it says, that's what it says. I'm telling you, the phone was in Skid Row.
Okay,
I have a photo of the gentleman that found it. I have the location where the phone was found.
Isn't Skid Row just a few blocks away from the Eastern Columbia building?
No, it's on 6th and Main, I guess, depending on what area you are.
Okay, so one of these two sworn statements, either what you just said in court just now that it was found 6 miles away, or this, one of these is false, correct?
It's just inadequate as far as the location. The location is not below the penthouse. It's not on Broadway. It was found on Broadway by the unhoused man, and then he lives off of Skid Row.
Okay. Now let's move on to Coachella, please.
Yes.
You were with Amber and her friends that weekend at Coachella, and you testified a little bit about what you saw. Is it fair to say that Amber and her friends were having a good time that weekend?
Yes, it was.
And there were thousands of other people at that music festival too, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Were you aware that Amber's sister Whitney was pregnant and sober that weekend?
Wasn't my information, wasn't my knowledge.
Were you aware that Amber's sister Whitney threw up in a parking lot that weekend?
No.
Okay. To your knowledge and understanding, Mr. Jenkins, there's nothing wrong with wanting to spend time with your friends at a music festival after being abused by your husband, right?
What abuse?
That's not an abnormal thing to want to be around your friends, correct?
She was partying it up with her friends. She was
Okay.
partying it up.
And you said you didn't hear anything about, she didn't say anything to you about domestic violence having taken place, correct?
Nothing in the car pertaining to that.
Would it surprise you that she might not want to talk to someone who had worked for her husband for around 23 years at that point about domestic violence? Would that surprise you?
Objection, speculation, Your Honor.
Sustain the objection. Next question.
Ms. Heard texted you on May 12th, 2016, asking you to call her, correct?
Correct.
And you did not bother to respond to that text, correct?
Correct.
And that was the last communication that you had with her, correct?
Correct.
Now, you weren't, just to be clear, you weren't at Amber's house on Orange Avenue in March 2013 when Johnny was there, correct?
I might have driven him to the location. I'm familiar with the address.
But you didn't enter the house at any point in March 2013, correct?
Depending on if he had luggage or gifts going upstairs, I might have.
But you didn't hang out with him inside the house, right?
Hurry up and wait in the car, sir.
And you weren't at the Hicksville Trailer Palace in late May or early June 2013, right?
No.
You weren't on a plane flight from Boston to Los Angeles in May 2014, correct? With Johnny and Amber. You weren't with Mr. Depp and Amber in the Bahamas in August 2014, correct?
Correct.
You weren't with Mr. Depp and Amber in Tokyo in January 2015, correct?
No, I was not there. Correct.
You weren't with Mr. Depp and Amber in Australia in March 2015, correct?
Correct.
You weren't at Thanksgiving with them in Penthouse 5 of the Eastern Columbia building in November 2015, correct?
I believe I was there.
You
I
didn't.
might
You
have
weren't.
been assigned the detail. I don't have the schedule, but I might have been assigned the detail that day.
You were-
Thanksgiving, it's a holiday.
Sure. You don't have any specific recollection of that one way or the other, though, correct?
I would probably say I was on duty that day.
Okay.
It's the holiday.
Okay. You weren't celebrating Thanksgiving in Penthouse 5 with them that evening, correct?
I was in the CP,
Okay, and that's a separate room, correct?
separate room on the same level. Correct.
And you weren't in the Bahamas in late December 2015, correct? With them?
Correct.
You weren't in the ECB with just the two of them the night of December 15th, 2015, correct?
That is right before the Christmas party, I believe. Correct.
And finally, you weren't in the penthouse of the Eastern Columbia building on the night of May 21st, 2016 with Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, correct?
Correct.
And you'd agree that you have no personal knowledge of what went on between Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard behind closed doors, correct?
Correct.
Nothing further. Thank you.
All right, redirect.
Just very quickly, Your Honor, do we have Mr. Jenkins' witness statement? Or perhaps? And if we could go to the third page, please. Mr. Jenkins, directing your attention to paragraph 13, which Mr. Rottenborn had you look at just a second ago.
Yes.
He read the first sentence of that witness statement. The Find My iPhone application indicated that Johnny's phone was somewhere on the streets below the balcony of the residence. walked out. Could you please read for the jury the second part of that paragraph?
I walked out onto the street, did not see the phone. I then asked several homeless people if they had the phone. One homeless man admitted to me that he had the phone, returned the phone to me in exchange for the following: $425 in cash, 3 chicken tacos, 2 bags of chips, 2 apples, 4 bottles of water.
And so do you recall where you found the iPhone that day?
Yes, I do.
Objection asked and answered.
All right, I'll sustain the objection. Next question.
Mr. Jenkins, moving to Coachella, Mr. Rottenborn asked you about Whitney Heard. Do you know who that is?
Yes, I do.
Do you know the difference between Whitney Heard and Amber Heard?
Yes, I do.
And who was sick that
One
day?
is the boss's wife. One is the boss's sister-in-law.
Who was sick that day at Coachella?
Amber was sick.
Thank you. Nothing further.
All right, is this witness subject to recall?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Jenkins, you're free from testimony, and therefore you're free to do whatever you need to do, or you can watch the proceedings. It's up to you. But you're done for today, though. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for the court.
All right, have a good day.
You also.
All right. All right, I think it's close enough to 5:30 that I think we've had enough of a week. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we're going to go ahead and be done with the testimony for this week. Although, since I won't see you until Monday, I want to give you the long jury instruction that I give you every Thursday evening, just so we all remember our responsibilities, okay? So at this time, remember that you are not to read anything about this case. You are not to watch anything about this case. You are not to listen to anything about this case. This applies to television, newspapers, magazines, the internet, and any online sites. Further, you are not to read, watch, or listen to anything about this case on any social networking sites such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, blogs, or similar sites. In addition, you must not communicate with anyone about the case, whether in person, over the phone, by email, text, or instant messaging, or by any other electronic or non-electronic means. This includes your friends, family, coworkers, acquaintances, and strangers. I also instruct you that you cannot do any research or make inquiries about this case, whether online or by any other means. For example, you cannot look information up on the internet that is related to this case or related to the persons involved in this case, nor may you consult dictionaries or other reference materials. What you learn about this case is limited to what you learn in the 4 walls of this courtroom when proceedings are underway. You also may not communicate about this case or the persons involved in this case with your fellow jurors, okay? Hope you have a good weekend. It's supposed to be great weather on Saturday. Go outside, get some fresh air, okay? And just enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you back Monday at 10, okay? Thank you so much. All right. And as always, Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, please do not do any posting on social media and do not talk to the press. I appreciate it, and have a good weekend. For the attorneys, tomorrow, what time, how many, did we do our homework this week? Yes? We did. Work in progress. Okay, so are we still doing 19 tomorrow? 20s, you added one for me. That's lovely. Okay, great. So we'll do 20 tomorrow. So I would suggest 8 o'clock. Can everybody be here at 8? Sound good? Okay, we'll be here at 8 a.m. and we'll just do them until we're done. So bring a lot of meals, okay? All right, we'll see you tomorrow then. Thank you. Have a good evening. All right, thank you.